The sun rose slowly over the barren land, its light brushing the jagged ridges of ancient stone with a quiet reverence, as if it, too, were paying respect to a secret buried for millennia. Beneath those sands, deep beneath the ground we thought we knew, echoes from a forgotten world stirred once more. It began not in a sprawling museum or a grand academic hall, but in the desolate silence of the Anatolian plateau, where the wind carries dust like whispers from the past. Here, in southeastern Turkey, a farmer's routine excavation to clear rocks from his field in the mid-1990s would unravel one of the greatest archaeological mysteries of the modern age. Göbekli Tepe. What appeared at first to be ordinary stones turned out to be the tops of enormous T-shaped pillars, buried intentionally beneath layers of dirt and rubble. What lay underneath was not just an ancient structure. It was a temple older than the pyramids, older than Stonehenge, older even than agriculture as we know it. Radiocarbon dating would soon confirm the unthinkable. The site was built nearly 12,500 years ago. Who were these people? What drove them to erect massive megaliths, each weighing tons, etched with animals that still roamed the earth, and some that didn't? And more importantly, why did they bury it all? The site itself seemed to pulse with purpose. Circular enclosures with finely carved pillars arranged in symmetrical precision, each pair standing in the center like sentinels guarding lost knowledge. The carvings weren't random. Foxes, serpents, wild boars, birds of prey, all meticulously chiseled into limestone with tools supposedly unavailable at the time. No signs of permanent homes, no nearby agriculture, no evidence of a settled society. And yet, they built a temple. Some researchers theorized it wasn't a temple at all, but something far more complex. Perhaps a convergence point, where the earliest humans gathered not for food or shelter, but for memory, ceremony, communication with something beyond. Others went further, claiming the site bore signs of celestial alignment, that the pillars mirrored constellations as they appeared not in recent centuries, but over 10,000 years ago. A prehistoric observatory? Or something even more elusive, evidence that our ancestors weren't as primitive as we believed, and perhaps they weren't alone. But Göbekli Tepe was only the beginning. Just a few hundred kilometers away, a strange artifact began making waves in another forgotten stretch of desert. Buried beneath layers of ancient debris, a disc-shaped stone tablet surfaced, unlike anything catalogued before. Inscribed with symbols no one could translate, it glowed faintly under ultraviolet light, its carvings forming fractal patterns seen nowhere else in ancient art. The artifact was quickly whisked away for study, its origins tightly sealed behind closed doors. Some say it vibrated, just slightly, when placed near magnetic fields. Whispers spread that the disk and the temple were connected, that we were glimpsing fragments of a once global network. Not of trade, but of purpose. A code waiting to be reassembled. Soon, strange correlations emerged. Across the globe, in sites previously considered unlinked, similarities began to surface. Subtle architectural signatures, mirrored symbols, inexplicably similar myths. A set of carvings in Bolivia echoed the same spiral motif found on a Göbekli pillar. A ruined temple in Cambodia bore depictions of the same serpent deity seen at Tepe. And in southern Siberia, a collapsed stone platform pointed to stars visible only 12,000 years ago. Was this coincidence? Or were these fragments of a lost map? One drawn not on paper, but across the bones of Earth itself. Then came the discovery in the North Atlantic. A research submarine charting the seafloor near the Azores picked up a geometric anomaly, a perfect hexagonal pattern stretching nearly 2 kilometers, hidden beneath centuries of sediment. As robotic divers swept away the silt, they revealed what appeared to be tiled stonework. The path led nowhere, ending abruptly at a sheer drop. But those who analyzed it saw something uncanny. The dimensions of the tiles matched those of the inner sanctum at Göbekli Tepe. And then, silence. The discovery was quietly decommissioned. Access to the site was revoked, but the data had already leaked. The world's oldest mystery wasn't buried in one place. It was scattered like shards of memory, waiting to be assembled. And as more secrets came to light, a chilling possibility began to emerge. That 12,500 years ago, something happened. Something vast. Something that reset civilization itself. Some call it the Younger Dryas impact event, a sudden return to glacial conditions that disrupted Earth's climate in an instant. Others believe it marked the fall of a global culture that had reached technological, spiritual, and astronomical heights, only to be erased by fire, ice, or war. And if the builders of Göbekli Tepe knew it was coming, perhaps that's why they buried their temple, not to preserve it, but to hide it. But from what? There are symbols in this world, ancient, recurring shapes that appear across different civilizations, as if some forgotten hand was etching the same knowledge across the skin of time. Egypt, long before the pyramids cast their eternal shadows on the Nile, long before pharaohs rose to power, there were whispers of a knowledge far older and far more sacred. Hidden deep inside the walls of Egypt's oldest temples, carved into stone and etched into ritual, 3 symbols appear over and over again. The Ankh, the Waz, and the Djed. The Ankh, the key of life, eternal and divine. The Waz, the scepter of dominion, of power over realms seen and unseen. But then there's the Djed. Strange, silent, unsettling. A pillar with horizontal lines stacked like vertebrae. Some call it the spine of Osiris, the god of resurrection and the afterlife. But what if it's more than that? When modern engineers first saw the Djed, many didn't think of bones or gods. They thought of insulators, electrical conductors, a shape that belongs not in a temple, but in a laboratory, or perhaps in a machine. And carved into the walls of Saqqara, Egypt's oldest known pyramid complex, this Djed appears again and again, as if it held some central secret to life, to power, or to memory itself. But whose memory? Osiris? Or something older? Some researchers dare to speak of a civilization before the Nile, before Egypt itself, a time when knowledge was stored not in scrolls, but in symbols, in devices, and in rituals that were both technological and spiritual. A civilization that vanished, but left behind relics of impossible design. And that's when the trail leads west, across deserts, across myth, to a name whispered for thousands of years: Atlantis. The blood memory of Atlantis. In the cold depths of the Mediterranean, just off the coast of Sicily, a sunken ship was discovered, its bones hidden beneath sand and coral for over 2,000 years. Inside, archaeologists found something strange. Not gold, not silver, but radiant red ingots, metallic, otherworldly, orichalcum, the metal Plato once wrote about. A metal, he claimed, that made the towers of Atlantis gleam like fire under the sun. Until now, it was considered a legend. But here it was, real, tangible, waiting. The ingots glowed faintly in the murk of the deep sea, a shade of crimson that stirred something primal in the minds of those who beheld them. Was this evidence, or a message? A metal not native to any known mine, an alloy whose process remains a riddle. Was Atlantis not a city, but a vault? A storehouse of forbidden knowledge, scattered across the earth when the tides rose and time collapsed? Or was it something else entirely? A civilization that didn't vanish, but simply left. Some believe Atlantis wasn't destroyed but departed. A mobile city, a station, a place of origin, not of Earth, but of somewhere far beyond it. India's shape-shifting warriors, thousands of miles away, in the deep jungles of India, legends speak of the Vanara, warriors neither human nor beast. Their stories echo through the Ramayana, one of the oldest surviving epics in human history. These beings could shift forms at will. One moment man, the next monkey, towering, fierce, intelligent, and allied with gods in battles so grand, they blurred the line between myth and memory. Opposing them were the Rakshasas, shape-shifting demons with crimson eyes and a thirst for blood, creatures capable of flight, illusion, and transformation. What's strange is how their traits mirror beings found in entirely separate parts of the world, from the vampires of Europe to the Nephilim of ancient Israel. Is it possible that these stories weren't separate, but different retellings of the same events, passed down, broken, and reinterpreted across cultures and centuries? Some suggest these were not merely legends, but residual memories of ancient genetic experiments. If the Vanara were hybrids, created for war, then the Rakshasas may have been the failed results, the monsters born when power outstripped understanding, and in every myth, they vanish, always, into mist, into trees, into time. The death that changed the world. But if these ancient powers existed, if a civilization like Atlantis once thrived, where did it go? What could wipe it from existence? History offers one terrifying answer. Plague, the Black Death, the most horrific pandemic in human history. From 1346 to 1553, it swept across continents, claiming nearly 60% of the global population. Entire towns vanished. Fields turned to graveyards, and the world forgot how to breathe. But what if the Black Death wasn't just a medieval event? Archaeological digs in present-day Kurdistan, along the ancient Silk Road, uncovered a startling truth. A sudden spike in mass graves from the years 1338 to 1339, 7 years before the main outbreak. Could this be where it began? Ground zero? And could similar outbreaks, long before recorded history, have erased entire civilizations, including ones like Atlantis or Tiwanaku, before we ever carved their names in stone? The timelines may differ, the names may change, but the pattern is always the same. Rise, peak, catastrophe, silence. They called it a revolution, but not of war or kingship. It was a silent, circular idea that rolled through time, the wheel. But contrary to popular belief, it was never made for chariots, at least not at first. Over 5,500 years ago in ancient Sumer, the very first wheel wasn't for roads. It was for clay. Potters, quiet craftsmen shaping the soul of civilization, needed precision, and so the potter's wheel was born, a hardened clay disc that spun on a vertical axis. It gave form to bowls and jars that carried oil, grain, and water, the lifeblood of early cities. Only much later did the idea evolve. People noticed that logs rolled more easily than stones. What if a slice of wood could move things faster? Cut, shaped, and bored through with an axle, the first wooden wheel and axle combination changed the course of history. Combined with sled-like platforms, it gave birth to the cart, and the world would never move the same way again. But this was only the beginning. Hidden inside Egypt's oldest tombs, within stone temples kissed by sandstorms and time, lies a symbol most never notice: the Ankh, the Waz, and the most mysterious of them all, the Djed. Carved into pillars, etched into scrolls, and held in the hands of gods, the Djed looks like a spine, a strange vertical pillar with horizontal bars stacked like vertebrae. To the untrained eye, it seems decorative, but scholars suspect it's a code. In ancient mythology, it represented the backbone of Osiris, the god of resurrection. But others whisper that it predates even him. Before Osiris came Ptah, and before Ptah, perhaps no man or god can remember. And yet it appears on the 4,600-year-old burial chamber of Pharaoh Djoser, Egypt's first pyramid builder. Long before biblical plagues or the pyramids of Giza, the Djed stood alone, an emblem of something more ancient than dynasties. But here's where the story twists. Modern engineers, upon seeing the Djed, noticed something off. The shape doesn't match any ancient tool or architecture. Instead, it resembles something startlingly modern, a high-voltage electrical insulator. Coincidence? Or memory? Some theorists believe the Djed isn't just mythological. It might be a remnant, an echo of lost technology, a relic from a civilization that rose before Sumer, before Egypt, maybe even before memory itself. A civilization like Atlantis. If that sounds far-fetched, listen closely to the winds of India's jungles. There, hidden in palm leaves and stone carvings, live stories of warriors, half human, half monkey, known as the Vanara. In the Ramayana, an epic older than Homer's Iliad, the Vanara weren't mere beasts. They were intelligent, divine creations, engineered by the god Brahma to fight demonic forces. They spoke like men, thought like men, but could transform on a whim into colossal monkey warriors with strength enough to shatter armies. Their enemies? Rakshasas. Blood-drinking, shape-shifting demons with glowing red eyes and a thirst for destruction. Some scholars believe these Rakshasas inspired the Western concept of the vampire. Flying, vanishing in mist, transforming into beasts. But what if both were real? What if these creatures were not myths, but genetic creations, mistakes, or weapons? Some theories suggest that a highly advanced race, perhaps even the Anunnaki, once walked among us. Needing workers, warriors, or rulers, they began to play with life. The Vanara and Rakshasa could have been the first failed attempts. The myths may be fiction, but the pattern is not. Across continents and millennia, cultures echo one another. Hybrid beings, forbidden experiments, battles between creators and creations. And it's in those echoes that we begin to hear something truer than legend. The worst nightmare in recorded history wasn't a war, nor a storm. It was a whisper, spreading faster than fire. The Black Death. From 1346 to 1553, the bubonic plague swept across Europe, Asia, and North Africa. It didn't just kill, it erased. Estimates suggest nearly 60% of the world's population perished. If repeated today, that would be nearly 4 billion people gone. It took over 5 centuries for researchers to trace the outbreak's origin. And where did it begin? A lonely graveyard near Lake Issyk-Kul in present-day Kyrgyzstan. The year, 1338, 7 years before the full outbreak. Was it trade? Was it war? or something older waking up beneath the soil? Scientists still debate, but one thing is certain: even the most devastating mystery can begin with a whisper. The ocean keeps secrets better than any tomb. For centuries, Atlantis was dismissed, a metaphor, a myth told by Plato. But in recent decades, 5 separate underwater discoveries have sparked something the academic world isn't ready to face. What if Atlantis was real? Near Sicily, in the wreck of a 2,600-year-old ship, archaeologists discovered something astonishing: 39 bars of strange red metal. Not copper, not bronze, but orichalcum. A metal mentioned only in ancient texts, described by Plato as second only to gold in value, and mined only in Atlantis. These bars shimmered red beneath the sea, glowing as though lit from within. Modern analysis suggests it's a copper-zinc alloy, made using methods thought impossible for the era. So where did it come from? Some believe the ship was headed for a Greek port. Others think it sailed from a now-lost city on Sicily's southern coast. But one idea refuses to die. What if it came from Atlantis? The implications are staggering. If real, these ingots might be the last surviving trace of a civilization that lived and died before history began. Or perhaps never died at all. At the edge of the Bolivian highlands, where the wind howls like a language long forgotten, lies the ancient city of Tiwanaku. Shrouded in thin mountain air and mist, its stones remain, scattered like clues from a dream that once ruled the waking world. No mortar binds them, no carvings label their makers, and yet, these megalithic blocks, some weighing over 100 tons, fit together with such precision that not even a blade of grass slips between them. It's as if the stones had memories of a design too perfect to be random. Modern dating places the city around 1900 years ago, contemporary with the Roman Empire. But whispers persist that Tiwanaku predates history itself. The myth says it was not built, but remembered. Reconstructed from something far older, something erased. The city flourished in the 8th century, then vanished. No armies conquered it. No famine starved it. By the year 1000 CE, its people were simply gone. Some claim climate change. Others blame disease. But one theory stands quietly in the background: a flood. Not the mythical deluge of Noah, but a sudden cataclysmic surge that buried cities and memory alike. A wall of water that came without warning, that left behind only shattered stones and unfinished dreams. If this is true, then the earth has not known one flood, but many. Among the strangest artifacts ever unearthed is not a crown or a weapon, but a list. Carved onto a black stone prism over 3,800 years ago, the Sumerian King List is no ordinary historical record. It chronicles 241,000 years of kingship, far beyond any accepted timeline of civilization. It begins with an unsettling line. After kingship descended from heaven, it was first established in Eridu. The earliest kings didn't rule for decades. They reigned for tens of thousands of years. Alulim, the first name on the list, supposedly ruled for 28,800 years. He was followed by Enmenlu-Ana, whose reign lasted 43,200. Then, suddenly, a line appears. Then the flood swept over. After that, everything changes. Kings now live hundreds of years, not thousands. Gilgamesh, the hero of Mesopotamian myth, appears here too. He ruled for 126 years. His son ruled 30. His grandson only 15. What happened? Did a real flood separate an age of gods from an age of men? Some scholars dismiss the early entries as myth, Others wonder, were the first kings something else entirely? Hybrid beings? Extraterrestrials? Was this not a list of rulers, but a genetic record? The list becomes grounded only when Sargon of Akkad appears, the first name verifiable through archaeology. After him, time begins to make sense. But the mystery remains. Why record tens of thousands of years of impossible reigns, unless someone believed they were real? Centuries later, in a world torn by pandemic, science would uncover something buried not in the ground, but in our blood. A gene. Passed down from Neanderthals, this ancient marker lay dormant for tens of thousands of years, until COVID-19. Researchers found that certain individuals carried a genetic variant that made them far more susceptible to severe illness. The culprit? A protein called DPP4, altered by inheritance from our Neanderthal ancestors. In some people, this version of the protein acts like an open gate, allowing the virus easier access to cells. It wasn't just bad luck. It was ancient biology. For some, the inheritance was fatal. For others, oddly protective. The same long-forgotten ancestors that once gave humans fire, tools, and shelter may have also left behind a curse. A reminder that deep time doesn't just shape bones, it shapes destiny. In 2008, on the island of Cyprus, archaeologists unearthed something eerie, a lead tablet inscribed with a 7th century BCE curse. It didn't threaten war or plague. It was far more personal. May your male organs suffer pain during intercourse. Crude? Perhaps. But it reveals a darker truth of desperation, vengeance, and ancient magic. The tablet bore an image of a man holding an hourglass. Time, it seemed, was not on his side. By the 7th century, Christianity had already reached the island. But still, people turned to spells, to the old ways, to the idea that words carved in metal could bend reality. Magic and science have always danced close. And beneath the Caribbean waves, where light dies in silence, lies a riddle made of stone. Just off the coast of Bimini Island in the Bahamas, divers in 1968 found something strange. Massive limestone, blocks laid in a straight line, 6 meters beneath the sea. Some were rectangular, some curved like hooks. Together, they stretched over 150 meters, like an ancient road. No carvings, no artifacts, just stone and silence. Mainstream scientists called it beach rock, a natural formation shaped by tides and time. But others disagreed. The blocks were too precise, too aligned. They resembled a road, or the remnants of a harbor wall. Geologist Robert Schochen proposed a radical idea. What if this was man-made? What if it was Atlantis? The ancient city Plato described had vanished beneath the waves. And here, just as he said, was a road that led nowhere, but began everything. To this day, no definitive answer has been found. The Bimini Road remains a mystery, half science, half legend, a sunken whisper from a world the ocean won't let us remember. But Earth's oldest memory may be written not in stone, but in fire. In 43 BCE, a volcanic eruption rocked the North Pacific. Thousands of kilometers away, in Rome, people looked to the sky and saw darkness. The explosion, from Mount Okmok in Alaska, sent ash across the globe. For 2 years, Europe and North Africa plunged into freezing rain, crop failure, and famine. Rome, already shaken by Julius Caesar's assassination, collapsed into chaos. The Republic died, and in its place, empire. Nature does not need armies to end civilizations. Sometimes, it only needs silence ash, and time. Even the divine, it seems, obeys patterns. Across nearly every culture, the number 3 emerges again and again as a symbol of balance, power, and creation. In Christianity, it is the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. In Buddhism, the body, speech, and mind. In Kabbalah, the first emanations, nothingness, wisdom, and understanding. Why 3? Some believe it's psychological. Humans seek balance in triads. Others say it reflects cosmic truths, a code embedded in the universe itself. Creation, preservation, destruction, past, present, future, birth, life, death. In 325 CE, at the Council of Nicaea, Christian leaders codified the Trinity. But the idea was older, deeper. Perhaps it wasn't invented, but remembered. A clue, a cipher, a symbol older than time. The perfect number, pointing to an imperfect truth, that even the divine is composed of parts. And in those parts, we may find the echoes of a 12,500-year-old secret still waiting to be understood. If these ancient clues stirred something in you, an itch that history books never scratch, then follow us. Subscribe, stay curious, and remember, the past is never truly gone. It's only waiting.